We begin today once again with the big question hanging over the world as 2021 hurtles to its end. Is Russia getting ready for war in Ukraine? There remains a substantial build-up along Russia's border with Ukraine of forces, but Vladimir Putin continues to insist Moscow doesn't seek conflict. The Russian president says he wants to avoid any violence with both Ukraine and the West. Last week, Russia presented the West with sweeping security demands, saying that NATO must not admit new members. Moscow says Ukraine joining the military alliance would be a red line. The other key demand was for the United States to stop establishing new bases in former Soviet republics, now independent states. For Russia, the onus is on the West. It must provide Moscow with security guarantees to avoid confrontation. So what does the US think about these proposals? Washington says that it is willing to discuss some of them, but it calls several of the Russian demands unacceptable. The US also insists that European allies must be part of any dialogue. President Putin reads the US willingness to discuss his demands as a positive sign. Russia says Washington is ready for talks in Geneva, possibly as early as January. The Russian leader says representatives from both sides have already been selected for the talks.
In Ukraine and not to expand the NATO military alliance.
In this regard, I would like to underline that in general we have seen a positive reaction so far. Our American partners tell us they are ready to start this discussion, these talks, in the very beginning of the next year in Geneva. Representatives from both sides have already been appointed. I hope the development of the situation will proceed along that path.
Tensions have been slowly building over Ukraine since mid-November when Washington sounded the alarm over the massive Russian troop buildup. The Biden administration warning its allies they feared Putin was planning an invasion. The Kremlin, on the other hand, claims it is impossible to have relations with the Ukraine government because President Volodymyr Zelensky is under the influence of radical forces.
Теперь с ними отказываются просто разговаривать. Объявляют их террористами и говорят, разговаривать с ними не будем.
They simply refuse to talk to these people. They call them terrorists and say they won't talk to them. Tell us why. Because instead of meeting people's needs in peace and using this mood in the Ukrainian society, President Zelensky came to power and instead of meeting the needs, got under the influence of radical nationalistic forces, just like the previous authorities.
Vladimir Putin, of course, was once a KGB agent during the Soviet era. He has described the USSR's collapse, which took place exactly 30 years ago this week, as the greatest geopolitical disaster of the 20th century. The conflict centers around Moscow's uneasiness, even now with Ukraine's independence. When Russia annexed Crimea in 2014, it was a turning point, the beginning of the undeclared war between the two sides.